Are you looking for a card fold that's easy to make, but adds a little extra charm? In today's tutorial, I'm sharing two versions of the classic bookbinding card design. First, I'll walk you through the traditional horizontal layout that I tried years ago. Then we'll switch things up with a vertical version that gives the fold a fresh, new look. Whether you're new to this fold or just want a quick refresher, both styles are beginner-friendly and perfect for any occasion. I've also put together a free printable guide with measurements to make it even easier to follow along. You'll find this listed down below. So whether you're revisiting this fold like I am or trying it for the first time, let me show you how simple and fun both versions can be. Hey everyone, it's Lean from coloradolean.com. Welcome back to the craft room. Before we get started on our horizontal card, let's talk about the papers that we're going to be using today. For my card base, I'm going to be using a piece of 110-pound Recollections card. This is from the Coffee and Cream paper pack. My card mats will be scraps of cream-colored cardstock, also from Recollections, and 110 pounds. And for the pattern paper, I'm going to be using a few more papers from the Habitat Recollections Signature Series paper pad. I have had this paper pad for years, and I'm finally coming down towards the end of it. Let me just give you a real quick flip through of what I have left. So just a few pieces. And for today's project, I'm going to be using the mushroom paper. Now this piece of cardstock is cut to 4¼ inches tall by 11 inches long. And if you download the bookbinding card template, it will show you all of your measurements, your score lines, and where to apply your adhesive. This will also have measurements for the card mats. So according to our template, we need to score our cardstock at 4¼ inches and again at 5½. So that is 4¼ inches and at 5½. When I fold my cardstock after scoring, I always put the mountain side of the fold to the inside of my card, because we'll be folding our card in half and then the front of it will fold open on the, so I scored it on this side, and now I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to score it again at 4¼ and then that will give me the mountain side of the score on the other side. So let's go ahead and fold our paper. And then we will crease that with a bone folder. Let's fold our card front back to open it like a book. And then I will burnish that as well. And that is all we need to do for our scoring. To turn this into a bound book, we're going to go ahead and put adhesive in this area here. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and use 3/8" score tape, as well as a little bit of art glitter glue. Now you could just use the score tape if you wanted. You could just use a liquid adhesive. Either one would be fine. So I'm just going to put a little bit of art glitter glue onto my adhesive, or onto my score tape, and then in the center of that panel as well. And then we will close our card. And that is our completed card base. Let's go ahead and set this aside for just a moment and work on our card mats. Bringing in our template guide for our card front, which is this area right here. We need a card mat that is 4 inches by 4 inches. And for our card spine, we need a piece that is 1 inch by 4 inches. So I will cut this piece of Recollections card to 4 inches. And then I will cut it again at 4 inches for our card front. And then I will trim this piece down to 1 inch. So to cut my 12 by 12 pattern paper, I'm going to bring in my Tim Holtz and Tonic Studios Rotary Media Paper Trimmer. Because I'm going to use the same paper on both cards, I am going to cut this to the height that I need for the vertical card. And then that way I can trim it down for my horizontal card. For the pattern paper, I need that to be 5 1/4 inches tall. And I want to make sure that my paper is going the same direction. Because the mushrooms are kind of all over the place, there is text in the background, so I can see which direction that is going. So I will place this in my trimmer and cut these both to 5 1/4 inches. Now that our pattern paper is cut, let's go ahead and trim this down to size. When we look at our landscape guide, our pattern paper for the card front needs to be 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. And for our card spine, we need 3/4 of an inch wide by 3 3/4 of an inch tall. So let's go ahead and cut our strips down to 4 1/2 inches wide. We'll set that aside. And they need to be 3 3/4 of an inch tall. So I will cut these together. And now I need to trim off 3/4 of an inch for my spine. So I will line these up at 3 3/4, and then that will leave me 3/4 of an inch. And I am going to turn this over because there is a little bit more going on this side. Now that I have my pattern paper trimmed to size, I'm going to go ahead and tuck 2 of these pieces away for later. And I will be making another card with this. So my idea for this card is to have the plainer paper on the spine and then the more colorful paper on the front of our book. And I think that is just going to make a lovely card. So let's go ahead and adhere our pattern paper to our mats. When I'm adhering this to the card base, I do want to make sure that my text is going in the correct way. And again, I am just adhering this down with some art glitter glue. And I want to be cautious and careful that I'm kind of lining it up to match the card mat on the spine. And because I have a dark brown card base, I did cut an extra piece of the cream color cardstock to 4 by 4 inches to put on the inside of our card. And there's our first card. All right, let's get started on our vertical card. I have a piece of 8.5 by 5.5. And then according to our directions, we need to score this at 3 inches and 4.25 inches. So again, that was at 3 inches and 4.25. And again, I'm going to turn this over and rescore at 3 inches. So now let's go ahead and fold this back. And then we will burnish it with our bone folder. Again, we're going to go ahead and put score tape and art glitter glue to close our binding. And I'll go ahead and speed through that for you. And there is our card base. So let's go ahead and set this aside for a moment. Bring in our paper trimmer again. Now I have already cut the mat size for our card front. We need this to be 2 3/4 inch wide by 5.25 inches tall. And for the spine, it is 1 inch wide, again by 5.25 inches tall. I just realized that there are some issues on here. Yeah. So I'm going to make sure this gets fixed before I put it down in the download, so it will be perfectly correct for you. So for our pattern paper, it needs to be 5 inches tall. And then we need 2.5 inches for our card front and 3/4 inch for our spine. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this to 3.25 inches wide. And that will be enough for the entire card front. And then I will cut both pieces down to 5 inches tall. All right, now that it is cut to size, I can determine which side I want to put on my spine. And I think, again, I'm going to put the left-hand side. I do want the left-hand side of the pattern paper to be on the spine again. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it upside down. And again, I have both pieces of pattern paper. And I will line this up at 2.5 inches. And now I have my 3/4 inch spine. So again, with 2 pieces of pattern paper, I have enough to make 2 cards. I've also cut an extra piece of the cream colored card at 2 3/4 by 5 1/4 for the inside of the card. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off here real quick and get this put together, and I'll be right back with you. And there is our finished vertical card. I finished off both of these cards with some punny sentiments that I printed on my computer. Have a sportacular day, and there's so much room in my heart for you. It's such a fun way to personalize your cards. Now, because I did print these on the computer, I did not want the ink to smear while I was working with it. So I did use some Distress microglaze over the top. Now, if you're curious on the fonts that I used, be sure to check out the full blog post over at coloradolean.com. For this vertical card, if you find there's not quite enough room to write inside, feel free to adjust the width of the spine. This card fold is so flexible, and you can easily customize it to fit your needs. And don't forget to download the free printable guide linked below. I will be double checking all of the measurements, so everything you need will be there and ready to go. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this tutorial and found it helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with a crafty friend, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you next time. Happy crafting!